Good morning, our dear listeners. You're welcome to PwC Nigeria Quarterly Energy podcast called Let's Talk Energy, where we discuss energy topics across the world. Today, we are focusing on recent developments in the upstream oil and gas industry, specifically the recently concluded Marginal Fields Bid Round. My name is Jide Adeola, Partner Energy Utilities and Resources, and I have with me in the studios Adeola Akinrinmade, Executive Director, Petralon Group, and COO, Petralon 54. Adeola, you're welcome.
Thank you, Jide.
Just a brief introduction. Adeola is the Executive Director of Finance of Petralon Energy. Petrolon is an upstream energy company established to acquire, develop, operate, and finance hydrocarbon assets in Nigeria and in the oil and gas sector. Adeola is a chartered accountant and holds a BSc from Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. For the benefit of our listeners this morning, we're talking about marginal fields development in Nigeria. And of course, marginal fields have several parameters that can affect them. Environmental, political, stability, access, remoteness, and of course, the price and stability of the products that comes out of those fields. Marginal field development has gained relevance in Nigeria because of the benefits to the economy. The federal government of Nigeria commenced the Marginal Fields Round program in 2001 as part of their policy to improve the nation's strategic reserves and promote indigenous participation in the upstream oil and gas sector. 20 years after, the award of marginal fields has continued to progress, but 50% have developed into production. 13% of those awarded back then have made some progress with the acquisition, while 37% remain undeveloped. This poor performance of the marginal field operators is due to certain challenges, some of which we're going to talk about today. So I want to start with this morning with the first question I have for you, Adeola. Can you please just, in your experience, give us an overview of how the entire process went for you in terms of how you, ended up, becoming an operator of a field in the Nigerian oil and gas space? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jide. A pleasure to be here. My thanks to you and to PricewaterhouseCoopers. You've long been our partners, not just a Big Four member, or should I say a Big Two member, because I think it's Pricewaterhouse and the rest. Nigeria is very much an oil and gas country. So I want to give a bit of context first as to why I feel I have a right to even speak to this topic, and also to what I believe the audience is comprised of. We're an oil and gas country. I mean, a third of the government's budget revenue is oil and gas. 90% of our export earnings is from oil and gas, even though 9% of the GDP only comprises of oil and gas. But nevertheless, the oil and gas industry remains a mystery to the man on the street. That's why I think what you're doing at PwC is important work, demystifying that. Why do I have a right to even talk about this today? You spoke about my background with my degree, which was in accounting from OAU. I'll just skip forward to 2002 when I started working with a telecommunications company. We were the first company, in fact, we were the pioneer company that came into the country with MTN. I was fortunate to be the project accounting lead in that company, and we built the technical and infrastructural background of telecommunications that you see today. Most of the companies that you see today maintaining the telecoms infrastructure were companies that we mentored when we came in 2002. I was with that company for about 10 years, garnering technical and operational knowledge, became the de facto CFO, then moved on into oil and gas. I've worked with quite a few oil and gas companies in roles such as project accounting, financial management, and even executive roles like the current role that I occupy. But the beauty of it is that because of the extensive experience I have in project accounting, I've garnered quite a bit of expertise and technical knowledge, which is why I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the SPV that holds our operating assets. Now, to answer your question directly about marginal fields, I love your definition of marginal fields. I'm going to bring it home a bit. Generally, marginal fields refer to discoveries that have not been exploited for long. That's a general definition of a marginal field, whether we're talking about the North Sea or we're talking about any other country. In Nigeria, a marginal field is defined as a field that has had reserves reported annually to the DPR. Well, we call them NOC, Nigerian Upstream Production and Petroleum Regulatory Commission now, reported annually to the NOC and booked, and yet has remained undeveloped for over a decade. If a field falls into that bucket, then it's defined as a marginal field. Historically, I love the fact that I referred to the 1996 period, which was about the time the marginal fields came into existence. That was when we had the first round of marginal field awards to indigenous companies that are now famous today. The fanfares of this world started with OPL 216, which later became OML 127. Petrol has OML 130, which is the Egina and Apple fields. They started from 1990. But coincidentally, I talked about my experience in 2002 when Obasanjo basically initiated and oversaw the telecommunications growth in Nigeria. Coincidentally as well, we had the Petroleum Amendment Act of 1996, which Obasanjo administration encouraged and utilized to bring forth another round of award. That was the 2020-2023 award. So we're talking about one of my favorite companies now in this period, the Ogbela Field, Niger Delta. I love the way that company operates. That was when they got their field, although theirs was slightly like a pre-award. Then we had Ibigwe, Watersmith, Umasadege, Midwestern, and then we also had Uko Frontier. These companies now are like the gold standard for what an indigenous oil and gas company should be. And this all started in around 1996. Even though, as you mentioned, unfortunately, decades later, only 50% have developed, but still, we have those superstars. Now, to your specific question, you asked me about the entire process. Am I right?
That's correct.
All right. Thank you very much. I'd spoken about the awards that were granted to various companies in the 1990s and the 1996 era. Dawes Island Field was first held by Chevron, but not as Dawes Island. It was held as OML 54, Oil Mining Lease 54. Chevron had a PI, a participating interest in it, and they operated that asset. But that asset contained the Dawes Island Marginal Field. So what happened in 1979 was that Chevron drilled a discovery well on that asset. They encountered some pressure. Eventually, they had a stock drill pipe. And as you can imagine, a stock drill pipe takes quite a lot of expertise and funds to retrieve. And it was, like I would say in quotes, just a discovery well. And it being Chevron, a mighty IOC, they plugged and abandoned. And I think from reading their reports, their geological reports, they did not deem it worth their while in terms of the economic margins that they could get from that well for them to go back into the well. So they left it plugged and abandoned from 1979. We defined an oil and gas marginal field in Nigeria as one that has not been worked upon or produced for a period of 10 years. So nothing was done on the asset for the next 10 years. Fast forward to 2001, yes, just in time for it to fall into the bucket of the marginal bid round of 2003. So it was carved out and declared the marginal field in 2001. So as part of the 2003 marginal field assets in the bucket, it was allocated to a sole operator who, of course, paid all the signature bonus, and it became an awardee. Then fast forward again to 2021, it was awarded to Petralon 54 Limited.
All right, thank you very much for that. That is quite an experience, and also a lot of history in terms of the development of marginal free field in your experience. But let me ask you another question that's quite related to that. If you look at what has happened since, going down again the history, and why some of them have developed and why some haven't developed, what should be the next step since the award of, for example, your own license, and how have you progressed with them?
So the very first thing that happens when you receive your letter of allocation is you celebrate. You rejoice because you've been allocated a marginal field, which, as I said, is a big deal in Nigeria. Then the next thing you do is you settle down to read the letter properly, and what pops out at you is a signature bonus. So I'm going to define a signature bonus because, like I said, I believe our audience are industry experts and the man on the street. A signature bonus is a single non-recoverable lump sum payable by the licensee, or in this case, an awardee. I use the term awardee loosely because until you actually fulfill the next steps I'm talking about, you are merely an allocatee, if there's such a name, to the government. So it's something that you need to pay to the government. It's non-recoverable. You pay it once upon being granted or being notified of an OPL or PPL award. Now, typically, you're given about 45 to 90 days to make this signature bonus payment remittance. Then there's a cure period. What's a cure period? That means that if you're unable to make it by the 90th day, you have another 30 days to make good on, making the remittance. If If you're unable to make that remittance within the cure period, then the allocation is basically rescinded by the federal government. And case in point, because let me situate it in the 2020 Marginal field bid round, there were 57 fields, 161 companies shortlisted, but unfortunately only 120 companies could pay. So come, the end of that cure period, the NOC cancelled or rescinded the letter of allocation, the allocation actually to 33 companies. Once you're done with remittance of the signature bonus, it is acknowledged by the federal government. Then the next step is typically a farm out. Now, why do I say typically? We're in a transition period. The PIA was promulgated and came into effect in August 2021. So the farm out is actually process is being phased out. But nevertheless, I think it's relevant to talk about it because in the Nigerian mind, a farm out is seen as, you come in and we farm in to a certain participating interest and economic interest. But that's not really what a farm out is. The beauty of a farm out is it can take several forms. A farm out could be a technical farm out. It could be a financial farm out. It could be a service farm out. I've been part of at least 2 joint ventures that were in one, my company was a technical farmie. And in another, we were the financial farmie. So what a farm out essentially tries to do is to spread the risk and exposure of investing in an asset. And it's also to bring in the strengths and expertise that perhaps the allocatee or the awardee does not have. So say my company has financial expertise, but we don't have technical expertise. Or we have a little bit of technical expertise because before you are awarded a marginal field, anyway, you must have a clear line of sight you must evidence technical expertise and a clear line of sight to financial capability. Yes, exactly, to develop. But perhaps you don't have enough. So you add on people to support you in that. So typically that's what a farm out is. But in the Nigerian marginal field context, a farm out is when you assign part of an oil, natural gas, mineral interest operating right to a third party. Who is the farmee? You are the farmer. And then you have a commercial agreement around that, which has things like overriding royalty.
Okay, thank you very much. Just before my audience gets lost in the farmer, situation going on there, is there anything that, you want to maybe expand on in terms of the definition of the various and what it means?
Thank you very much, Jide. A good question. I would actually like to expand on the structure that underpins that relationship. As you can imagine, because of the various forms it comes in, you must have an agreement. So you have your relationship with the federal government, but now you must have a relationship. It's like a tenant-landlord situation, actually. Yes. The landlord has the OML, what used to be called OML under the Petrolon Act, now called the PML. Fun facts. If you want to get used to this OML, PML dichotomy, just change the oil to petroleum, So what happens is that a farm out is guided by what is called a farm out agreement. And what's a farm out agreement? Right. Simply, it's a document that allocates responsibilities, liabilities, and codifies the commercial agreements or the operational agreements. And that is what guides your relationship. That's what a farm out agreement is. Now, even those farm out agreements are in transition. If you're a marginal field, because we're talking marginal field today, and your asset was declared a marginal field before January 2021, and you already had a farm out agreement, what the PIA allows you to do is to continue to utilize the terms of your farm out agreement, to continue to work under those terms, but you have 18 months within which you need to convert to, I believe it's to a PML. Yes, and I think that 18 months lapses ends in about February 2023, as the PIA was implemented in August 2021. Yes. So you've got 18 months. You can convert early, but you must convert at the end of those 18 months. Now, if your asset was declared a marginal field prior to January 2021 and you were not producing, automatically with effect from August 2021, you have a PPL right there. Yeah. Now, there's something that is close to my heart here that I should also just mention, because I love the fact that the PIA has made our dreams come true. What do I mean by that? I'm talking about the fiscal terms of the PIA. When I came into oil and gas, I read that, the fiscal terms, that petroleum profit tax for marginal fields was supposed to be 55%, but it was never gazetted. And it was a thing of pain for us because then you would have your 65.75 thereabouts for the first 5 years, then go on to hit the 85% PPT. It's beautiful to me to see that under the PIA, I think for the PPL, you have 15%. And for the, I'm still in the OML PPL, even I am struggling. And for the PML, you have the 30%. For your hydrocarbon tax, aside from your CIT. So the beauty of it is that, hey, here we are now at 45% thereabout. So that's something that I love about the PIA. Just said, let me throw that in and say thank you.
You still have capital allowances and all that.
I still have capital allowances.
So
also although there's some things I don't love in there. For example, my finance costs. I can't deduct my finance cost anymore from my hydrocarbon tax. I can't deduct arbitration fees. Not that I have any legal fees, but I mean, it's a give and take.
You remember what you said you went to celebrate. So those are the things that sort of temper the scale of the celebration you have then. So it's very fantastic to have that. But there's something quite interesting about what you said earlier in terms of paying the signature bonus and all that. In your experience, how significant is this? And what kind of support have you received from the regulators in terms of the process of payment of signature bonus, even the award itself, and how much support do you envisage that you will get from them going forward in terms of even the operations of the assets themselves? Thank you.
Thank you. The signature bonus was arrived at, in my opinion, in a scientific and empirical manner. It wasn't just a random number by the regulator. I'll confess this. I've grown to have a lot of respect for the regulators in the past few months that we've been relating together. They've been very proactive, very supportive, holding our hands, providing us with technical data, technical information about the field, which, as you can imagine, is paramount if you are to plan to develop and work the field in a business-like manner. They've taken us through the life cycle of the field, from development even to abandonment. Yes, we've spoken about abandonment plans, having an escrow account and all those other discussions. We've had it with them. We even went on the assets. They took us around the asset. We spoke, it was called DPR. Last year. That was.
Yes, it's now called NUPRC, Nigeria Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission.
Yes.
Thank you.
And also we have the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream
Regulatory Authority.
The authority. So we call them Commission and Authority. I'm very impressed with the depth of knowledge that they have brought to bear, and we have benefited from it. And you know what? You said going forward, I think it's going to get better. Why? I looked at the crop of private sector individuals that they have recently appointed as executive commissioners. And, they've got the best, bright young minds, coming on board with a wealth of experience. I looked at the profile of the legal advisor, commission secretary, and I was so impressed. So what do I expect in the future? I expect them to continue to provide us with an enabling environment to do well in the upstream petroleum operations. And also, I expect an improvement in responsiveness and proactivity because they're bringing in the private sector mindset. So I believe they will add even more value to the commission and the authority, and even to us, the marginal field operators.
Thank you very much for that comment as well. I really like your response. There is another side of the last question I asked, which is related to, funding the payment of the signature bonus.
Yes.
And of course, you will have your initial work programs all the way to the development of the field. So what kind of support is your company currently getting from financial institutions following the award? And how much more support do you envisage that you will get from them? These are significant capital spends in USD. So how do you see that panning out?
Jide, I have to tell you, it's a bit of a challenge. Again, let me start generally. Nigeria is not currently the favorite destination of foreign direct investments. Financial institutions, international ones, are also not looking at us. Unfortunately, they're not enthused about our policies, and also the general insecurity in the country is a deterrent to that kind of investment. Then you say, okay, but that's international community. What about your local financial institutions? But over the years, we're talking from 1993 to date, these financial institutions have had their hands burnt several times. they've gone out on a limb to support oil and gas companies, both local and international companies, less the international companies, and they've had their hand burnt with default. Now, somebody might say, but that's their job. Isn't that what they're in the business of doing? Is it not to provide loans and facilities and there will be incidents of default? But you have to put it into context. And there's a statement that you made just now in asking that question, Jide, that answers the question. Let me situate it for the man on the street. A well could cost as much as $25 million. Translate that at the current official rate of 415. You've got over 10.5 billion naira. That well goes south. There's a stock pipe. It's a dry well for whatever reason. You have a financial institution carrying that on their balance sheet. How many of them can tolerate that? To take that 10.4 billion, spread it out over 4 FMCG, fast-moving consumer group companies, you make your returns.
Yeah, very quickly.
Yes, very quickly. So it's to them, the risk seems inordinate with respect to the returns. And so they're not very eager. But here's what we have done. So that's a general situation. But I have to also be very sincere with you, even though it will seem like humble bragging. We don't have that challenge in Petralon 54. We don't have financing issues. Why? Because we deploy the right tool for the right problem. You spoke about signature bonus. And this is for my people that are coming on board. Don't look to an FI to support you for a signature bonus. You're not going to get it. For a signature bonus, what you need is equity. You're allowed to farm out a certain portion up to a certain amount to other companies. That's what you do. Look at the farm out arrangement that I spoke about. Could it be technical? Could it be financial?
Yeah,
and bring on capital to fund your signature bonus.
Yes.
If your company has the right profile, your SPV in this case for the marginal build rounds, because we all had to come together and form an SPV, then you should be able to attract the right kind of equity to pay for your signature bonus. Going forward into development, you then need to look at, okay, so let me use Petralon as an example. Like I said, we don't have that problem because we have strong corporate governance and experienced board and management. I could spend all day talking about our board and management, but I encourage you to go onto our website and see the wealth. We've got over 100 years of experience in oil and gas, in financing, sitting on our board. So we have the right board members, evidence technical skills, good credit that we've built. We've painstakingly built our good credit over the past 7 years that we have been, in existence, and we always service our debt. We don't blame COVID. We don't blame the downturn. We don't blame Ukraine. We just settle our debts any which way we can, even if we have to suffer in-house, even if the board has to step in and give us shareholder loans, we service our debts. So we've built up our credit base. High oil prices are also, aiding us at this, but that's an external factor. I'm more interested in the internal factor. So like I was saying, we've also gone beyond the financial institution support model. We deploy the right tools, like I said, for the right problem. I spoke about signature bonus and equity. I'm going to talk about working capital facilities as well, short-term facilities if it's a 3-month program. Pre-export finance, if you're at the exporting stage, you have an off-taker, you can have pre-export finance. Hybrids, convertible debt, we've utilized that at different points in time. We've had carry arrangements, we've had, and also we use our retained earnings. So if you're doing well, you should have a dividend policy. So then you have your work program and budget approved by the regulator, so you know exactly how much you're going to spend. So you should be able to plan based on your retained earnings how much you're going to utilize and put back into that for development. So that's my response.
Thank you very much. Some of us who are observers of the industry will imagine when you have a situation, you have 37 successful individuals all running to the give or take 21 banks we have in Nigeria looking for how to fund there, and then at the end of a couple of years, maybe they all land somewhere in AMCOM. But this is a very interesting case that you pointed out. And I think that there's a lot of learning that can be taken from your experience. So thank you very much for that. There's so many stakeholders we can imagine. You talked about your board, very solid governance in place, and all of the structures you have that enables you to be able to get financing as when needed. But there are other stakeholders. So what is your investment that you currently have? How does it impact all the key stakeholders for your assets and for your operations? Thank you.
Thank you. I keep saying thank you because it's like the things that are dear to us and near to us in Petralon 54. So I'm going to start with my board members and shareholders. Needless to say, they're happy. We continue to give them return on investments. So they're happy, and I think we will continue to keep them happy. The other stakeholders, I'm going to talk about three stakeholders, are the employees. Now, this relates to the man on the street. Headcount is increasing. As we're expanding our operations, we're employing more and more bright minds, bringing them on board. And now, to the one that I really want to focus on is the community. The tagline for Petralon is collective energy for all. One of the things that we plan to do is to redefine the relationship between oil companies and the community. So what we do in Petralon is we want to fund projects, but not the projects that we think they need, the projects that they know they need. We want to sit with them, and we do sit with them and ask them, what do you need? And they choose their representative who will run whatever they need. Our own job is to give them guidance because we're from the private sector, and to finance and fund whatever it is that they will have to do. One other thing that we do that we see as an investment, and that we've only been able to do because of this investment, is employ the youth of the community. We have what I like to call Petrolon 54 University. We take about 40 youths from the community, we train them, we retain some of them. The ones that are not retained are trained enough to go out and be gainfully employed with other companies, perhaps not even in the oil and gas industry. Yes. We also go a step further beyond that, because we go at it on a multi-level basis and engage community vendors. So they are preferred vendors. If it's not a technical, if it's not something that his Schlumberger needs to do, then we seek a local vendor to do the job.
Okay, thank you very much. Stakeholders are very, very critical in everything you do in business, and especially for oil and gas operations. There are a lot of things that even the PIA talks about in terms of the community fund, the commissioning costs and all of that, as well as funding the, restoration of the community themselves. So there's a lot of fund that over time there'll be clarity in terms of how it operates and all of that.
You're absolutely right, Jide.
Yes.
What we seek to do is to complement, because you can't do it alone. So what we do, since we're there, we're seeing it live. What we do is complement the federal government.
In fact, what you've said also perfectly ties into what the spirit in the PIA is
exactly
addressing. So this is very, very good, and thank you very much once again for that. What are the things that you consider key considerations when you're looking at facilities and resources required to start full production? I mean, you already have, at the time of bidding for your assets, you had a work program, how you're going to develop the assets and all that. So what are the key considerations that you have going forward to get to that point of full production?
Technical and operational suitability and efficiency. We've been on an asset whereby it was a rig. I've worked in a company where it was a rig that, that brought the entire operation down. It wasn't the right specification. And so a program that was supposed to run for a certain period of time overran it by about 1,000%. So technical and operational suitability and efficiency. EHSS is paramount. The health and safety of your staff, of the people, of the community, your security, the environment. Cost efficiency comes a close third. And then scalability, because you have to look at economies of scale. What I have here, can I build on it? Don't bring in something that you have to take out in its entirety as your production increases. So you plan with the end in mind. You look at the life cycle of your field. Where will I be in 5 years? So it has to be scalable. Qualitative manpower. If you've got everything, your manpower is not what it should be. Perhaps hiring is on the basis of nepotism, because it's an oil and gas. People overestimate the flesh that an oil and gas company has. They assume that if you are making so much money, you can afford to have leakages. But if you hire the wrong set of hands, you destroy your entire operations. I'm not going to mention names. I've seen 2 or 3 companies run down mainly because their high level hires were hired on the basis of their surname. Business partnership. I think I left this for last, but it might be the most important one. Business partnership at every level. Business partnership with your staff, with the community, with your regulator, with your financier. You have to have the right partners.
So, thank you very much. Somewhere when you were talking, you quoted, actually not almost, you quoted Stephen R. Covey. You said you start with the end in mind, and I think that's a very good approach in terms of how your company decides to progress. So there must be some sort of challenges that you might, encounter in this progress of developing your field into where you want to take your company and your operations to. So what are these challenges that you see now, and those that you foresee from a statutory, technical, and financial standpoint? What challenges do you see?
The challenges that I foresee on the technical front are those that I believe you will appreciate, Jide. Brain drain, emigrating human capital. Yeah,
That's a serious one.
it's a serious one for all of us. PIA migration, interpretation and implementation, there'll be teething pains, even if it's only because of the restructuring into the commission and the authority. Access to infrastructural facilities, operational facilities, environmental concerns, degraded environments. I mean, there's a lot of soot in Port Harcourt, and the health of our men, I'm concerned about it due to the consistent pollution. Evacuation routes. I mean, for you to evacuate and sell your crude and get your finances in place. Pipeline losses. On one of the pipelines, I am told that in December last year there was 90% loss, and piracy and other security challenges. But I must stress, for every challenge, there's a solution.
That's a very, very profound comment that you've made there. Thank you very much once again. I think it will take a lot of working together with every stakeholder, like you mentioned earlier on, regulators, security agencies, around all our operations, to get to that point where we see that we're able to create a lasting solution to the challenges that we face in the industry.
All hands must be on deck.
All hands must be on deck. Thank you so much. Okay, what are your views in terms of what you perceive of the opportunities that this investment that you're making will bring for your company? And you're not in the marginal field space to play. You must have some benefits you're looking at. So what do you see as the benefits that coming back to you as an organization? Thank you.
For Petralon 54, I see a growth of technical and operational capacity, and we can deploy this as we grow vertically and horizontally. I see us being able to prove that we're able to deliver. We've been proving it for 7 years, but you never stop proving. I see it as a leaping board for Petralon to, exceed the boundaries of Nigeria and go, to other African nations and beyond that. And I also see it as a chance and opportunity to fulfill our vision of an indigenous African energy solutions, delivering collective value for us. So we're an energy company. We're not just an oil and gas company. Energy being everything. And finally, the most obvious one, of course, financial and developmental rewards to all stakeholders, community, shareholder, employee.
Thank you very much. Your comment reminds me of the objective of even the local content development policy for Nigeria. Correct. And it ties out all of that. So, of course, you're building competence in that area. You're also developing your people, and then you're growing as an energy company, either vertically or in any other dimension that you've considered, which is very, very, very profound. But I believe that with all of this, this is the kind of businesses that we're hoping to see more of in Nigeria, and driving that sector of the marginal field oil players.
Thank you.
I know that there are tax incentives, which we've discussed earlier on in terms of the fiscal terms for marginal fields operations. But I think there's a lot much more in terms of the advantages of being a marginal field operator. Just to tie everything out again, what do you feel are these advantages, and how do you intend to take advantage of them, if I might say?
The beauty of being a marginal field operator is that you're nimble and agile. With respect to information, you're able to assimilate the information and process it and include it, inculcate it in the decisions that you make. So your decision making is faster and more informed. Therefore, you're able to pivot faster. With a large establishment, you have to go through all the bureaucracy. For example, in my company, speak to 2 people and the decision is made. Because of that, you're also real change makers in respect to your stakeholders. Yes. For example, the community. You can see the direct measurable impact of what you're doing on the community and as a result on the state. You're empowering the youths directly. You attract the best minds, because the best minds go to the places where they know they can make an impact, where they can see what they're bringing to the table and see it in real terms and see what is coming out from there. And they're also very committed, because they come in at the ground level into a company that is a potential seplat, so to say. And then, of course, there's a growth of the technical, local, operational expertise as we empower the vendors and create entrepreneurs.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much. I like the way you said create entrepreneurs there, because the ripple effect of that is actually profound. And imagine where you have model companies just like yours doing the same thing across the entire value chain. Yes. What a great impact it will be on Nigeria's GDP growth. And of course, I like to say this very much: federal government taxes and revenues for the federal government of Nigeria. It's been wonderful having you in the studio today. We've talked about a lot of things. We started with your journey, and there's a lot of lessons for any listener today to pick from that. There's the need to be very commercial, very intentional about your approach. You need to have very good governance structures in place. You talked about the fact that you have very good corporate governance in place, and that sort of helps you in terms of funding and financing a lot of your programs up till date. We see that you've worked together with regulators in driving the activities of your business, and I think there's a lot of pointers to people out there who are also running similar assets, not to leave the regulators alone, but to involve regulators in every critical aspect of their operations. There are a lot of things that you've considered in mobilizing resources. I like the fact that you talked about your employees and critical stakeholders as you drive your operations along. We also have challenges in this space. Paramount, or in terms of hierarchy, on top of that is security challenges we have in Nigeria. And I think that we will be able to, the private sectors, marginal field operators, will be able to work together, relevant people in society as well as the government, to bring a long-lasting solution to this.
Exactly.
I really want to thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, your understanding with us in the studios today, and of course the benefits to us in Nigeria is very so. I just want to thank you very much, Adeola Akinrinmade, once more for coming to our studios today and having a very great conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, PwC. Thank you, Jide, for having me. I had a great time.
You are welcome.